Well, it's number 34, not Shaquille O'Neal, but episode 34 of the Single Barrel Sports Podcast. What's up, people? My name's Deeb.
My name is Scott.
Let's get it.
Pat McAfee said today we got our guy.
How many sixth graders would it take to beat LeBron James in a game? Ready for the ultimate sleepers?
Shedeur Sanders went number 144 in the draft. Yo, it is episode 34, and we are back. It's a big one this week, guys. Fantasy football starts in, today when you hear this episode. We're recording on Tuesday, so I was almost going to say 2 days. Deeb, what is up, my friend? We had a big week in college football, and it just feels like we're right in the heart of one of the best sports seasons of the year. How you feeling, man?
Feeling pretty good. Generally, I think there was a lot of hype going into the weekend. So we had college football really kicking off, a lot of really great games. We still got to wait a little bit for NFL. That's coming up this weekend, but I think it lived up to some expectations. So I was definitely watching. I definitely tried to watch as much as I could. I ended up going golfing on Saturday, so I kind of had to, watch some games on the run. So we pulled up the Oregon game on my phone while that was going while we were out, and then it was great. Holiday weekend, got an extra day off, so it's always nice to rest up a little bit too. But I really enjoyed having college football back. Let's put it that way.
Hell yes, dude. And right on time. We just finished the PGA Tour playoffs the week before, and there it was. College football was just that gift waiting to be unwrapped.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of it. It started, you didn't have to wait till Saturday for it, and then there was games Sunday and Monday. And although I don't know if Monday counts, I don't know about that UNC game.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it was fun. We had a lot of top 10 teams playing against each other, which is really cool. Historically, I think back in the day, you always thought of week one as being pretty boring, kind of those tune-up games. But we had some bangers this weekend, and the rankings got shaken up quite a bit, and I know we'll talk about that in a little bit here.
Yeah, definitely. Um, Outside of the college football, no, I mean things were pretty great. Like I said, went golfing Saturday, so that was fun. Um, Other than that, man, honestly, just tried to stay low key. I know we don't really do too much for Labor Day. Generally speaking, I know some people like to do cookouts and that sort of thing, but for us, it's more of a staycation. Just hang out, chill. We had some really great weather here too, so just tried to spend some time outside and relax a bit. So I don't know if you
Yeah.
guys did anything fun.
No, you described ours pretty well. Pretty much same energy here. Had a really nice weekend at home. Spent a lot of time just playing and having fun with our son. And Raven traveled yesterday on Monday. As you know, I think she's at your house right now while we're recording.
Yep.
Hanging out with your wife, and so yeah, we were just kind of catching up on the family time and enjoying it. And man, it was just a perfect weekend. There was lots of laughter, lots of outdoors, and really good sports on TV. So really can't complain about that at all.
Hell yeah. Well, before we get too far in, we just like to give people a reminder. We know there's definitely some folks that are new, or maybe this is a newer episode for you. Uh, Very easy to find all of our stuff. If you just go to singlebarrelsports.com, as long as you spell it right, it'll take you basically to all of our content. So we're on all sorts of social media. Our full episodes on YouTube and Spotify. We do video episodes, and we have a new merch store. So as you can see, got some of our merch on right now. Got some hats and some other gear. I know a couple people have ordered and posted about that as well. So if you have any recommendations, let us know what you want to see, and we'll do it.
Yeah, and just shout out to everyone who has bought the gear. Hope you like it. And as Deep said, this store will continue to change. Looking forward to updating that over time.
Sweet. So we usually do our sports term of the week first. So Scott, looks like you have another football related term. What is it this week?
Yeah, well, it just seemed thematic to stick with football with the NFL coming back this week. And the one I went with this week was check down. Do you know what I know you know what this is. I'm pretty confident, but what is a check down in football terms?
Yeah, so it's funny because as we've talked about, with some of the high school football stuff, obviously we have our official first game coming this week on Friday, but we actually talk about this. We're talking about it right now this week. So we talk about it in a couple different ways. I think the way that you're talking about is specifically related to quarterbacks, right? So it's like a progression. They're looking for various receivers, and this is one of the possible options that they can make. In terms of like a receiver to go to. But I will add to that, and I'll let you elaborate too on what you mean. We actually use the term check down for defense as well, believe it or not. So in this instance, I know what you're getting at, but we use it as, hey, we need to check down to what the offensive formation is. So we will switch alignments and stuff like that based on what they show us.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like swapping a DB or a linebacker onto the line, maybe
Yep.
something like that. Yeah,
Yep.
that makes sense. I think I've heard that in that context before, but that's not something that I was coached with that terminology on defense. But on offense, and getting back to your point, I really was thinking about the quarterback in this situation or passing the football.
Hmm.
And usually the check down is just considered kind of a shorter, safe route. So if the guys downfield are covered, or if there's maybe a heavy blitz that's coming where the quarterback needs to just get rid of the ball, there's a pretty easy short range throw to make that you can make pretty quickly with not a lot of wind up or footwork that typically the defense doesn't cover too aggressively because they're not going to gain a lot of yards if they catch the ball. And so usually it's considered to be kind of like that safety net on a passing play where if you can't go deeper down the field, it's kind of an option that just kind of stays there for you to just check it down for that short yardage gain. It's a little tricky because it sounds nice in theory, but it does catch a kind of a negative connotation. And a lot of times throughout history, fans in particular will get upset or pissed off when a team does this too much. They think it can be kind of cowardly, that they're only making small gains at a time. They might call it boring or act like the quarterback maybe doesn't have the skill to throw it further down the field. When in reality, it's probably just a smart game plan against specific defenses, but it certainly does have its pros and cons. If you're only checking down repeatedly, you're only going to be gaining a few yards each play, and it's going to take a lot of those together to score a touchdown. So,
Yep.
interestingly enough, there have been plenty of quarterbacks throughout history who've been kind of labeled like check down artists, to where their whole reputation or their legacy is kind of like distilled down to just those check down passes that they make, kind of almost disrespecting their decision making capabilities, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? When teams kind of overuse the check down, what are your opinions?
Well, like you said, there's definitely some strategy to it. Like we always coach, take the gift. If the defense gives you a gift, if it's 5 yards, if it's 3 yards. Again, it depends on scenario, right? If it's 3rd and 10, you don't want to take 3 yards.
Hmm.
But if it's 1st and 10 or 2nd and 7, like taking the 3 yards actually is a smart play. So while it's not, I don't think it's a bad thing, but I understand from a viewer's perspective and from somebody who watches football, why you would think that. But I don't know, maybe for me it's changed, I think maybe because more on the coaching side, so I understand the strategy part. But I don't think I've ever really felt that way even before this.
Yeah, I mean, I played the position, and very similar coaching that I received. My coach always said, "Take the guarantee, don't force anything." And so, like you said, take the gift. If I have a guy that I know I can complete a 5 yard pass to, like I'm 95+% sure it will be a 5 yard gain, or I have a guy that's 15 yards down the field, but I feel like I've got like a 50% chance or a 25% chance. I was always coached, take what you know will be, the guarantee or the damn near guarantee.
Yep.
We'll get the sexy play later, when your guy's more open because now they're starting to apply more pressure on the check down. So
Yep.
again, like you said, it's a strategy and it is a mindset. And for me personally, when I played, and I think this is how NFL players would approach this, they care about one first down at a time. They care about making sure they keep the football until they score. And this
Yep.
is a safe way to do that. It's a smart way to not lose yards or to gain 0 yards.
For sure. Well, that
Cool.
is sports term of the week.
Yeah, the check down, look out for them this weekend. You will see plenty of them.
So we had some stuff happen, and this was past weekend. So we're gonna go through this stuff fairly quickly because we want to make sure that we're covering it, give you a little bit of our takes, but we realize that we're on to the next week of college football and other things. So What do you wanna talk about first? Got the top 25?
Yeah, I think the big topic in college football, especially in recent years, is the rankings. How the rankings changed. It really affects teams, but with the expanded playoffs, people are more interested in all ranks and not just kind of the top 2 or 3, 4 ranks. And so, we had 4 top 10 teams lose this week. We had Clemson, Alabama, Notre Dame, Texas. Texas was number 1 going down, which is a pretty big deal. So almost half of the top 10 teams had a loss in week 1, which again is kind of crazy when you consider what we talked about earlier with week 1 usually being kind of good teams playing against really crappy teams. So first of all, what are your thoughts on that, man? Like just to see that many top 4 or top 10 teams lose.
Well, I'm not surprised because of the matchups, right? Like, when you go into the season, a lot of people are ranked, and I don't wanna call it randomly, but, you'll hear, "Hey, this team's overrated. This team always gets ranked high because of their name and brand." So, to an extent, I don't ever really get surprised when, you have these top 10, top 15 matchups. Teams are gonna lose, right? Somebody's gotta lose.
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
Texas, Ohio State, like 1
1 and
versus
2.
yeah, 1 versus what was it, 3 or
3.
whatever?
Yep.
Right there, I mean, that's a great example of, like, either way, whoever loses, the rankings are gonna change. Either Texas is gonna stay number 1 or Ohio State's gonna move up. So, nothing really surprises me from that perspective. Um, I just think that they were some pretty good matchups overall, and we got some pretty good games from them. I don't think any of the games that were, highly ranked teams were disappointing, at least. There wasn't, like, any blowouts from what I saw.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. And excuse me. Part of the nature of the way things are scheduled is exciting because you got a big kickoff for college football and a reason to watch the games here. But to your point, there are legacy schools, like in my opinion, Alabama is one of those that constantly is ranked higher than maybe they should be.
Yeah.
And they went down to an unranked Florida State team who maybe should have been ranked a little higher. And I think that's part of the fun with college football is you just never know what's going to happen. But by the end of the season, you'll have a pretty clear picture of who the teams are that really deserve to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's the thing, though, Florida State was really bad last year. So, again, it's hard to judge, like, I think some of the predisposition that gets thrown out there is, how was the team last year? What's their strength of schedule? Like,
Hmm.
I don't know, you know what I mean? Some of that leaks into the new season, unfortunately, whether you like it or not. And so that's Florida State's kind of in that weird bucket, I think. But I mean, Alabama, interesting, right? Like, interesting that they just flat out got outplayed, outcoached, whatever you want to call it. Like, their effort was not there. And you could definitely
Yeah,
see it when you watch the game and watch some of the, people posting the clips of like players jogging and that sort of thing.
it definitely did not feel like a Nick Saban Alabama team. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. You wanted me to show I think I actually have the image here of the new ranking. So let's put that up
Yeah.
on the screen.
Yeah, let's see what things look like. These rankings came out just today as the day of recording here. And so we do have a new number 1, and it is Ohio State. And I do think that they've earned the number 1 spot. I don't know if Penn State lost the ability to be above Ohio State by going out and smashing a bad team, but here we are. We have Ohio State on top. Penn State stays at number 2, and LSU moves into number 3. Those are some pretty big changes. Texas and Clemson both lost, but they're hanging out still in the top 10. Same with Notre Dame. So all 3 of those teams with the loss are still in the top 10, which is an interesting thing. It is very early in the season, so I can kind of understand that. But if we were at the very end of the year and we had a bunch of undefeated teams and then a few teams with 1 loss, people would be crazy about the fact that these teams with 1 loss are still in the top 10. So really curious to see what happens with that going forward.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So Michigan kind of stayed put a little bit. I think they might have gone down one actually. Um, they have a big matchup with Oklahoma, which we'll talk about later in our picks. Alabama obviously slid pretty, reasonably down to 21. South Carolina, I thought they actually struggled in the first half versus Virginia Tech, but then they showed a lot more confidence and strategy in the second half. So
Yeah.
I think they definitely improved. But that first half, I remember texting you, and I was like, I don't know if they're gonna win.
Oh, they were only winning by like 2 points at one point. It was like 10
Yeah,
to 8 or some weird score.
yeah.
And then I think they
So,
ran a punt back for a touchdown, and then after that, they just kinda, like, took over.
yep. So, but none of this really surprises me. I mean, like you said, I'm not surprised by any of the changes for this week.
Yeah, there's, there could be some arguments made here, like, should Clemson and Notre Dame still be in the top 10? Should Illinois or, Arizona State or some of these teams that are undefeated that played well move up? Um, should Florida State have gone all the way to 14? Because they weren't even ranked before. So those are
Yeah,
the types of questions people will ask. We'll get more clarity as time goes by. But I was genuinely curious about what they would do with the top 10, and I don't hate it. I don't have a strong opinion. I would
yeah,
probably have done it slightly differently, but that's fine. I think it looks okay.
yeah, for sure. Um, I think the only other thing we wanted to cover briefly was just Arch Manning. It's something that we talked about. We had a couple of segments. I think we had one kind of over or under 3,500 passing yards last week, but he was getting shredded on X, man. I mean, during the game, after the game, like I don't think I've ever seen that much traffic to one player other than Shador Sanders, um, honestly, lately in football. So, what did you think of just in general his game and maybe just some of the reactions to it?
Well, if you recall a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about Arch Manning and talking about the tremendous pressure he was going to be under and going on the road and also not having a ton of starts, not really starting against a meaningful, high profile football team. I was worried that that pressure could potentially get to him. And it certainly appears that it did. He had some pretty bad throws. His first throw of the game, he threw to a wide open receiver and threw it like right in the ground, missed him entirely. He really, I think the reason he's getting cooked is because he is such a high profile player that went out and looked very average. He made a handful of really bad throws. They tried to get him going with the, quarterback sneak tush pushes and all that, and they were not succeeding with that. He did have a couple of good throws later in the game. There were some redeeming throws, but it wasn't enough to string a victory together.
Yeah,
And I think that the biggest concern that I have, and that has been pointed out quite a lot on social media, is that his throwing mechanics look bad. He has his elbow like super low, and he just kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. The only person that I've seen have success throwing a football like that is Brett Favre. And I don't think that that's a good thing to emulate just because it worked for one guy at a high level.
yeah,
So I'm more so, and I saw it during the warm-ups, and I even said something to it then when I was watching it. I'm concerned about his mechanics and how he throws the football. It's gonna be maybe harder for him to throw it in the pocket if he throws that way all season long. So
yeah,
I guess we'll see. I think he's gonna be okay, but I do think this was kind of a wake-up call where it's like maybe this guy is not quite as developed as everyone thought that he was.
yeah, yep. And I mean, maybe it's why he didn't, start over Quinn Ewers last year. And I mean, that's a hard first game, man. You go into a defending national champs at their house and
Mhm.
you're expected to play well. I mean, you could probably name 5 maybe quarterbacks right now that could do that. If they, right now in college football that could go to Ohio State and play a very well, confident game. Like that is very hard as a brand new starter to do. I don't care what level you're at.
Yeah.
That's not easy.
And one thing I do want to point out is both of these teams demonstrated some amazing defense.
Yeah.
So it's not like he was playing against like a just a bad team. He was playing against an elite college defense, and this game could have gone either way. There was 2 times that Texas went for it on 4th down. One time they were on like the inch yard line, and one time they were on like the 3-yard line.
Yeah.
And they failed both of those, and then Ohio State went for it on 4th down on, like, the 2-yard line, and they actually scored a touchdown, so that's a pretty big swing. If Texas scores on one or both of those other possessions, they coulda won this game, so it really did come down to it being a game of inches, which is, that's fundamental football.
Yeah. And it's not like they got blown out. So, I mean, 7-point game, right? It's not,
Mhm.
I don't know. Very interesting. Um, what do we got? We got one last thing, NFL news.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to highlight really quick too with Lee Corso, and I know you and I were texting about this, but
Oh, yeah.
his
Yeah.
his final kind of game day pick segment that he did. Obviously, he chose the same team that he did the very first time he did it, which was Ohio State. Kind of a nice like full circle moment for him. Although I don't like the team, I can respect the choice. And I think the big takeaway here is he had 100% of his predictions correct on his last day doing it, including he chose Ohio State in that high profile game, and he chose Florida State to beat Alabama. And so, pretty nice job on his last time, kind of doing that to nail every single game.
He was the only one that chose Florida State to pick to
Hmm.
beat Alabama, which is kinda crazy that he got that right.
Yeah. But anyway, that was just like a big moment I thought was worth at least mentioning here. But
Yeah.
let's pivot to NFL. Last week we were talking about teams and their success. And one of those teams we talked about their success, maybe depending a little bit on a certain player, Micah Parsons. And we talked about the trade rumors of him going to the Packers. And then was it the next day, I think, or 2 days later,
Mhm.
he did indeed get traded to the Packers. And so, what are your thoughts on that, man? Packers have Micah Parsons now.
Yeah, so they traded him for what, Kenny Clark and 2 first round picks, I think is what I saw.
Yep.
I mean, talk about a win for the Packers and a loss again for the Cowboys and mismanagement as we've talked about of some of their players and such. I mean, again, getting draft picks is always nice, but I don't know. I think the Packers are gonna highly benefit because that's one piece that they definitely need help on, is their D line. So, I think,
Yep.
this will definitely be very helpful for them, and the Cowboys are going to probably be upset later on.
It's an interesting thing right now because yes, Micah Parsons helps the Packers tremendously this year and would have helped the Cowboys tremendously this year. And it does hurt the Cowboys to trade him away. But if you really think about it, the Packers paid him a ton of money. They really tied him up with a lot of money.
Yeah.
They gave up a three-time Pro Bowler in Kenny Clark. It's not like he was just some like nobody that they traded away off the bench, and two first round draft picks moving forward. So in a sense, it's kind of like the Packers are in a very heavy win now kind of a mindset because they're giving up a lot of future assets to have Micah Parsons, locked up for a few years here to try and get that, Super Bowl win. I do think it makes them very, very, high contenders for their division and does increase their potential to win the Super Bowl. And Micah Parsons is, I think, the odds-on favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year. So obviously, you want that on your team. But they did give up a lot. I think that's kind of getting missed in the headlines here is how much they truly gave up for that too.
Yeah, but I think it's worth it
Yeah,
at
at
the
the
end
end
of
of
the
the
day.
day, and I said this about a month or two ago, but Michael Parsons is a generational type of player. So usually you just got to do what you got to do to keep a player like that.
Yeah, for sure. Sweet. So we have a new segment that we like to start doing and talking about since it's relevant, fantasy football updates. So anyone out there that plays fantasy football, as you know, week one is upon us, and upon the release of this, people will be putting in lineups and all sorts of other stuff. So I think the first thing that we wanted to talk about was rookies, right? That was kind of a hot topic of what's going on with rookies. I know, people drafted them. I certainly did. I'm sure you did. So what do you want to talk about first with the rookies?
Well, I think the thing with rookies that's really important to talk about is we know how talented they are. We know that they will eventually be stars in the league. How soon will it happen? And so it's especially important to talk about this week as we're leading into week one for fantasy football. All of these high profile names, how do they fit into their teams? Because we've only seen the preseason where a lot of the veteran players get benched and aren't, kind of competing for snaps with them. So we're going to talk about running backs first here. Probably the safest position or the safest one of the group of the bunch, the first one drafted, Ashton Genty. He is the feature back in Oakland. He is going to be the man in that backfield, expected to be that centerpiece. They'll use him for running and for receiving. Really, I think he's the safest pick out of all of the rookie running backs here. What are your thoughts on Genty? Anything to add to that, Deeb?
I don't think so. I think, yeah, he's definitely going to be a centerpiece in Vegas. The coach, his name is skipping my mind right now. Who's their coach? That older guy. Pete
Oh, Pete
Carroll.
Carroll.
Pete
Yeah.
Carroll. I was like, I literally can
That
picture
older
him.
guy.
I I can picture what he looks like, cannot remember his name for the life of me. Pete Carroll also, I think, is a offensive-minded guy, and that's why I think he will also benefit from being in that type of an offense with that type of a coach. So, definitely think he will be highly featured in this offense because they need him.
Yeah. Another guy that's gotten a ton of buzz this offseason is Omarion Hampton, and he is on the Chargers. And basically, the outlook on him is he is a workhorse. He has upside to be a workhorse for a team, but he's expected to kind of split carries earlier on in the season. So even though he had a really strong camp and has a ton of hype right now, he might have to share workload with guys like Najee Harris, for example, who haven't had much of an offseason because of that injury that he had with the fireworks and injuring his eye. But Najee Harris is cleared. He is healthy and he's practicing again. And so there's the expectation that Omarion will probably at least be splitting carries with Harris. And you never really know what that looks like right away. With those rookies, they sometimes get their touches limited, especially early in the season. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that one as well.
I've seen a lot of back and forth with this. I've seen that Hampton will, potentially become the starter eventually. That's the, potential plan for that. He probably has more upside. I don't know. Najee Harris he's one of those guys that I think was really good for a couple years and then he kind of just got stale. And I don't know if it was because of his situation in Pittsburgh or what, what the deal was. So, I'm very curious to see if being on a different team changes that because I mean he was a pretty good back, very consistent.
Mhm.
So I don't think he just necessarily goes away. I could definitely see this being a workload split for a little bit here.
Yeah, and I think if Harris didn't have that eye injury in the offseason, there'd be no question for me that Harris would be starting and Hampton would get sprinkled in. But because Hampton has been kind of the guy for the entire offseason because of that injury, I'm curious to see. I think Harris will still get a decent number of touches. I have no idea how this split is going to work though. But Harris is traditionally a workhorse and he can run the ball 20, 25 times a game. So it'll be very interesting to see. I think Hampton will be a star. I don't know how I feel about him in week one. That's just where I'll leave that.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll add is I mean Najee Harris is 1,000-yard running back, every year he's been in the league. So it's not like he's bad. I just think I don't know, something about maybe it was just Pittsburgh. I don't it's hard to explain. It's just it felt like he had more potential and it's something weird. So I really don't think he's just gonna go away.
Yep. Next guy, Travion Henderson. Obviously, he's a stud. He's a dual threat. He's got a ton of upside. He ran kickoff back for a touchdown in the preseason and has had monster yards on the ground and catching balls out of the backfield. So, everyone thinks he's going to be very meaningfully contributing to the Patriots team. Although for week one, he is currently listed as third on their depth chart, which is kind of a shock. I think everyone thinks about Ramondre Stevenson, but he actually is listed behind Gibson as well. So he is third. I don't know if that means he's going to get the third least touches or the third fewest touches, but that's what the depth chart says. So week one is a cautious week for Travion, but I do think, by the halfway mark in the season, he will have taken over that backfield, is my prediction.
That is interesting because and I wonder if some of it is just a source. Like I just checked ESPN's NFL depth charts, and they have him listed second. So I don't know if that changed or it just kind of maybe depends on your source, of where you look.
Mhm.
So I will be curious to see what is the usage, where is he at, and like you said, how often does he get in the game? I know Stevenson from my understanding, has had issues with fumbles, ball security. He is really great catching the ball. That's the thing I think that he provides is he's a runner and he's definitely a receiving threat. But I know ball security has been a challenge for him. So yeah, I don't know. I do think that'll definitely be a split backfield for a little while as well.
Yeah. Another big name heard a lot about this offseason, Caleb Johnson for the Steelers. And he's come in with a lot of hype. Again, had a pretty good offseason. Some interesting hurdles here for him. Jalen Warren just got a 2-year contract extension, which means that they're still investing in him, and he is listed as their starter on the lineup. Excuse me. And Caleb Johnson, again, is listed as RB3, the last I saw, and with their depth chart that just released today. So they think he's probably going to be running kickoffs back, but we'll see how many touches he gets kind of out of the backfield as well. Again, I think Caleb is the future of that team, but unproven and unsure of what week one looks like. I would avoid Caleb Johnson out of all these guys. I think he's the one I would avoid the most for week one.
Yeah, I agree with you on week 1, but I actually think he could be one of the sneaky pickups for, later, like a sleeper almost for later in the season, especially if, Warren goes down or, whatever, he's not playing well. Because I mean, I just looked at Warren's stats and, I mean, obviously he wasn't a starter, but he had like 500 rushing yards and 1 touchdown last year. He's
Yeah.
not he doesn't have a ton of experience, so
Warren has been an anomaly sharing the backfield with Najee Harris historically. I
yeah.
feel like he was more of a receiving back for a while, then got more into like running the ball. I don't know if he did have some fumbles. I don't know if it was fumbles that kind of transitioned things back to Najee, but then Warren became kind of a third down back again. They've had a weird roller coaster there where it just seemed like they couldn't get a true identity in that backfield. With Najee leaving, you kind of felt like they were going to go towards Warren, and then they drafted Caleb Johnson, but then they extended Warren. So it still feels very confusing, and I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
What I can say is I don't think Gainwell is gonna be the number 2 guy there. I think that this is going to be a two running back show between Warren and Johnson, and I
Yeah.
think sometimes in these early, before the season starts situations, I think they just list rookies a little bit lower on the depth chart than they might actually be. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of these guys came out and just popped off in week 1. Like, I'm looking at Travion Henderson, for example, could come out and have, a 100-yard game out of nowhere. So it doesn't mean to write them off. It just means there is some question marks about how much utilization they will get for the first week. And we'll kind of keep monitoring that as time goes on. But there's one more running back that we haven't talked about yet, who was a very high profile name, Quinshon Judkins, who got into some trouble, got into, some allegations of domestic disputes or violence. And I think his court case, his legal troubles, all the charges were actually dropped, so he is not under any legal issues right now. But the NFL is still investigating what happened there for their kind of, um, I don't know, conduct policy, I think is what they call it. And the big news here is because the NFL is still investigating him, there's not been a contract signed yet for Judkins. He is there. I think they're hoping and expecting a contract to be signed this week. But coming into week one, we're 5 days away from their first game and still a lot of uncertainty about that. So we don't know if there's going to be suspensions. We don't know when this contract's going to be signed. He is obviously a great football player, but it might be weeks before he's meaningful at all in fantasy football.
Yeah, and I did see some I was looking up some, news, and it does seem like he could possibly be playing in this first game, so I think they're working on the situation. Their running back situation is not great. I think they have, like, Jerome Ford or something starting, and they lost, a couple guys that they've had historically that have been pretty reasonable there. I actually picked him in fantasy football, I'm not gonna lie, just because I saw that risk reward of
Yeah.
if and when, he does get in, he could certainly be their number 1 and a workhorse. So I was kinda banking on maybe it's not the first or maybe it's not till week 3 or whatever. Like, he's one of my obviously, he's my bench running back.
Mhm.
So we'll see. I'm curious if it's a good pick or not. Usually I get a good rookie tight end, but I wasn't able to snag one this year. So we'll see if this is my good rookie running back like I had Bucky Irving last year.
Yeah. And I will say with Judkins, it is nice to be able to buy him low. He probably would have been a first or second round pick if none of this happened. And so to get him and to have him just stashed away as a bench running back is a steal. Um, he will play this year, and he will play well, in my opinion. It's just a matter of when that happens, and it could be a weird situation where, kind of like with Rashee Rice last year, if they can't figure out his suspension situation before the season starts, they might wait until the following season to even do it. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. He could play the whole year. Who knows?
Yep. For sure.
Let's talk. I'm going to just quickly run through receivers. So many good receivers in this draft. The notable ones that we have listed as starting for this year. for week 1. Matthew Golden for the Packers. He might finally be their true wide receiver 1 is what everyone's saying, and he will be starting that game. We have Elik Iomanar. I can never pronounce that, but that's the guy on the Titans who kind of took over by storm, and now he's a starting wide receiver there as well. Obviously, we have Travis Hunter for the Jags. We've got Amika Ekbuka for the Bucks, who is starting. Ted McMillan, no one's surprised, is going to be starting for the Panthers. And then another one that maybe was surprising here is Dante Thornton Jr. for the Las Vegas Raiders will be starting as well. And so those are people who have come out listed on depth charts as starting. There are other good wide receivers in this draft, like people like if you think about like Luther Burden for the Bears, who is probably going to get a lot of slot touches, but hasn't been listed technically as a starter yet. So yeah, just if you're wondering about wide receivers, those guys are sure to be on the field and likely to get some targets. So I just wanted to throw that out there as we think about rookies might usually trickle in their impact over time. These guys are going to be out there from week 1.
Yeah.
Cool. Other news here. Let's talk about just injury and suspension stuff, and I'll be quick about this.
Yep.
There was a quick little kind of caution around Lamar Jackson kind of last week. There was a foot injury maybe during camp, but he will be starting this week. There's no concerns about his foot at all. Matthew Stafford, this is an interesting one. There was speculation he might retire because of his back issues not that long ago. Still dealing with the lingering back injury, but will start week 1. I would be very cautious with this guy. Back injuries are nothing to play with, and who knows, how long he'll be able to throw the ball. If this back injury is still bothering him, but hopefully things work out for Stafford. I don't want him to miss time. I don't want him to end his career. Some big running backs that are on the physically unable to perform list. Joe Mixon is out with actually Nick Chubb starting for the Texans this week.
Yeah.
Kind of came out of nowhere. He was a free agent this offseason coming off of injury. Ty Spears, another young running back, he's going to be out for the Tennessee Titans, which Tony Pollard will be starting, which was the plan all along, but Ty was kind of making some momentum. He will not be playing. Devon Achane, calf injury. He's been out of practice for the last couple of weeks, but he is practicing this week, and he will start this weekend. Again, talked about Najee Harris. He'll be healthy this week. Another one, Jawan Jennings for the 49ers. At one point was looking like he might be their wide receiver 1 going into week 1. He had a calf injury, and he's also had some contract disputes, and he's listed as doubtful to play. And there is speculation that it might be more related to the contract than anything else. So that's an interesting one to follow along with, but probably not going to see Jennings this week, which means that Ricky Pearsall is going to be the number 1 on that team and really have a chance to shine. And then big suspension here is that Rashee Rice, they finally did come down and say 6-game suspension for him. So we won't be seeing him anytime soon. But then a fully healthy Rashee Rice coming in the middle of the season, week 7, look out. Kansas City he's going to take off like a rocket, if you ask me.
Yeah. And I was trying to look up who is the Kansas City starter then.
Ooh, well, they've got Xavier Worthy. They've got Hollywood Brown. I'm trying to think who else is out there.
Would it be? Well, okay, yeah. So, yeah, I would. Those would probably be their top 2 then. Jalen Royals is another one that I saw. Tyquan Thornton. I'm not actually familiar with these players.
I think Thornton is a rookie, but they also have Juju Smith out there. Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yep. I saw that.
I was wrong. Thornton is not a rookie. That's just a guy that I'm not really familiar with, apparently.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've never seen that name.
But an interesting thing is, this is kind of how their team was at the end of last season. If you think about it, they didn't have Rashee the whole end of last season. I think some of this might open up Travis Kelce a little bit again, but we'll see. Because by all accounts, he had a down year last year compared to recent seasons. But if you look at his actual fantasy points, he ended up being okay. He was still a pretty competitive tight end overall.
Yeah.
So yeah, even if he can do a little bit better than he did last year, I think he'll be right back in the spotlight.
And I did draft him. I don't know why, but I did.
Yep.
We'll see. And then the other one then if Achane is out for the Dolphins, Ollie Gordon is the backup.
Yeah, and Ollie Gordon's a guy we didn't talk much about, talking about the rookies, but he has picked up a ton of momentum. A lot of people are really high on him. I don't think he's in a good situation being behind HN, but we'll see what happens there. I mean, Ollie Gordon is looking good, though. I think he could be really good if he got the chance to play.
Yeah.
Now, their other running back is hurt, so he will be the backup for HN, who is coming off an injury. So maybe Ollie Gordon will get some extra touches this week, but I wouldn't probably start him in fantasy football.
Yep. Might be a nice backup guy to pick up if you got room on the bench.
Yep.
All right. You want to do some sit and start for week 1 then?
You're damn right I do. This is a brand new segment that I thought would be fun and have enlisted a couple of people to send me some ideas for this. But basically, for week 1 of fantasy football, this is a list of start versus sit. We're trying to compare similarly skilled, maybe similarly projected to score players and to decide who would we start and why. And so the first one, these are going to be a couple of running backs here. We talked about one of them already. Jalen Warren for Pittsburgh or RJ Harvey for Denver. Who would you start and who would you sit there, Deeb?
Okay, so I also like to look at their matchups. So Pittsburgh plays the Jets, and Denver plays. Let's see. Um, where are they at? Denver plays. Oh, the
The
Titans.
Titans. Yeah.
Ooh. I like Harvey because of the matchup. I mean, the Titans obviously were pretty bad last year. Not to say that the Jets are that much better, but I think the Jets have a new defensive coordinator. They probably have a more talented defense, in my opinion, than the Titans do. And so I like Harvey. I think he also has a lot of potential with that Denver offense, very high powered offense. Bo Nix, a lot of relief with the pass game there. So some uncertainty in Pittsburgh with Aaron Rodgers, which could lead to more running, but maybe even more passing because it's Aaron Rodgers at QB.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you. I'm writing RJ Harvey for sure, locking that one in this week. He is a rookie, so you never know what to expect, but he is the leader in that backfield in Denver on a very good offense, like you said, with a talented and intelligent quarterback. That goes a very long way. Jalen Warren likely will start. I think we've kind of discussed that already, but who knows how much interference he's going to have to his carries with guys like Caleb Johnson who might come in and take some touches from him. So give me RJ Harvey. He seems like he will be the man in that backfield. And I'm starting him because in week 1, I always go with the safe choice.
Yep.
Next one here, start or sit. This is wide receivers here. Would you start or sit Matthew Golden for Green Bay or Rome Odunze for Chicago?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Green Bay plays the Lions, and Chicago plays the Vikings. So those are both pretty challenging matchups. Ah, I go with the rookie, Matthew Golden. I mean, I think Rome Odunze has a lot of potential, but I don't know. Caleb Williams still has some question marks to me personally. So until I see that Ben Johnson and this new offense utilizes Romo Dunze, they didn't really utilize him a lot last year in his rookie season. So until I see it, I can't really pick him. So he could go off, and that could prove me wrong. But right now, my safer pick actually is Matthew Golden because I know Jordan Love and Green Bay are maybe a little more potentially steady than the Bears.
Yeah. You kind of you stole my thunder there, Deeb. So I'm riding Matthew Golden here for sure. And I think there's a couple of big reasons why. First of all, more faith in the offense there as the Packers. Like you said, what has Chicago proven to me lately? Not a whole lot. Roma Dunze is a very talented guy. I think he will be the man in Chicago, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did pop off this week. But I haven't seen it that often last year, and I want to give Matthew Golden the chance and what will probably be a shootout playing against the Lions. We don't know much about the Vikings and how they're going to be playing against the Bears. So we don't really know if we're going to see a shootout in that game too, but you can pretty much expect one with the Green Bay Lions game. So give me Matthew Golden to start. I'm sitting Rome Odunze in this situation.
Nice.
Next one here, Waddle for Miami or Worthy for Kansas City. These are two kind of normally kind of second wide receivers for their teams here, but yeah, what are your thoughts on that one?
Okay, so Kansas City plays who was it? I just saw it. The Chargers. and the Dolphins play the Colts. So again, I like to take that into consideration. I mean, call me crazy, but I'm actually an Xavier Worthy believer. I think that again, the Chiefs like to throw the ball. I had Xavier Worthy on my fantasy team last year, and man, he went off at times. So like he is much more of a, at least from last year, an up and down player. So I could bite my words, with my pick here, but I actually like Worthy.
Yeah, excuse me. Uh, hate to be a guy that just keeps agreeing with you here, Deeb, but I'm not a big believer in Tua right now, and I'm not sure exactly what that Miami offense is going to look like in general. I think Xavier Worthy having an entire offseason to play to plan to be the number one wide receiver for this week, knowing that Rushy Rice would probably be suspended. I think they're going to have a good game plan, and I think that Xavier Worthy will have a good game. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to have a resurgence this year because he's going to be able to throw the ball downfield more than he could last season. So for that reason, give me Xavier Worthy for that one as well. And I promise you, I won't keep agreeing with you, but you're making good calls so far. This next
Well,
one here. Now remember we're talking about fantasy football. If you're just queuing in today, we're talking about fantasy football for week 1, start or sit. Next one here is some quarterbacks. Justin Fields or Dak Prescott.
this one's tough because the Cowboys play the Eagles. This is a Thursday night game. So this is the first game that's going to kick us off. And the Steelers, of course, or excuse me, the Jets play the Steelers, um, which I don't know. I actually I might bite my words again, but I actually might pick Justin Fields. As crazy as this sounds, I know CeeDee Lamb and Pickens and all this. Dallas has some weapons, but playing the Eagles is a tough task. Your first game, right? Defending Super Bowl champs, they have a solid defense. The Jets have a new head coach, and so I don't know. I think maybe they come out and Justin Fields, actually shows a little bit against the Steelers, even though I think he's not that good.
I think Justin Fields could win this for sure. I am gonna oppose you here, just if for no other reason, just to oppose you. I think Dak Prescott is the obvious choice, although I think that with the rushing upside, Fields could technically be better potentially. But Dak Prescott has a shiny new object in he has George Pickens out there as his wide receiver too. And I think that having George Pickens will take away some pressure from CeeDee Lamb, and having both of those guys and having a very bad running game is going to set him up for a lot of potential points in fantasy football this week, especially playing against a good team. They will probably be playing from behind for most of the game. Give me Dak Prescott.
That's fair. That one's honestly the hardest.
Yeah. Well, I got another tough one here for you. Week 1, TJ Hawkinson at tight end or Ty Warren at tight end. Who are you starting here?
Oh man, again, interesting because Ty Warren, we don't really Tyler is it Tyler Warren, right? Tyler Warren.
Yeah.
We
Yep.
don't really know much. He's playing the Dolphins and TJ Hawkinson. I mean, they're playing the Bears. I like the safe bet Hawkinson just because you know what you're going to get, but JJ McCarthy's the big question mark. So I think McCarthy leans on this more experienced tight end because he may potentially struggle in his first game.
I agree with you here, and I hate to do it again, but JJ is going to already be without Addison. So he's got Justin Jefferson, which is great to lean on as a first time starter in the NFL. But JJ is probably going to get Jefferson is probably going to get double teamed if I had to guess, double covered. And so I think Hawkinson becomes that check down, that safe target, like we talked about. And for a quarterback starting his first time ever, that is a very helpful resource to have. Give me Hawkinson if for no other reason than I think he's going to get a lot of targets.
Yep, that's fair.
All right, running backs here. We only got 2 more of these. Running backs, Tony Pollard with Tennessee or Ashton Denty for Las Vegas. And again, we're talking about week 1. Who do you think will do better week 1?
Oh man, that's going to be interesting. I think Tony Pollard probably just because they're going to lean on him with a new rookie quarterback, so he's going to get a lot of carries.
I'm gonna go out on the hill and say Ashton Genty here. I think he's gonna have some stuff to prove. He was the clear overall RB1 coming into this season. And in that last preseason game where he played, he really just showed that he can lay down the hit stick on the pro level. And I think we'll see what happens here. They got a new quarterback in Las Vegas. They have a rookie wide receiver they've added to the mix. They obviously have Brock Bowers. They have a lot of weapons on offense, honestly. But that doesn't mean that Pete Carroll is not going to want to run the ball. I think he's a run first kind of coach. Give me Ashton Denty and we'll see what happens.
That's fair.
And last but not least, and honestly, these guys would probably both be starting in any lineup. So it's kind of a weird start sit comparison. But Chris Olave or Drake London, which one would you start over the other one?
Drake London. I think the New Orleans is not in a great quarterback situation. That's why I picked Alvin Kamara in my draft because I feel like they're going to have to run the ball.
Yep. Give me Drake London also. I think that, Olave's coming off an injury and has a horrible quarterback situation. Drake London was playing the best football towards the end of the season last year that he's ever played. So let me keep riding that wave with London and we'll see how things go in Atlanta.
Yep.
That is our start sit segment for tonight. Now we can do this every week or we can engage during our social or on our socials with you. So if there are other start sit considerations where you just want our opinions or want to engage in a conversation with us, drop a comment on any of our socials. We'd love to talk more about these hypotheticals. But that is week one. And I think that we chose a lot of winners here tonight.
Hell yeah. So we do have a little bit more. We're going to move into our fan favorites now. So this will be kind of an interactive segment. It doesn't next technically have to do with fantasy football, so that's why we put it separately. But essentially, it's going to be NFL early season awards predictions. So we're continuing to try to give all the listeners out there some of our predictions. We've been doing things like comparing to AI of like NFL playoffs, Super Bowl winners. We did college football playoffs, all that sort of thing. So we're just giving you tonight our straight up prediction. So it may be fun, actually, Scott. We might have to run it back with an AI prediction and see what does it predict and compare and contrast with ours. But for tonight, we're just going to give our general predictions and forecast.
Hell yeah.
So,
All right.
you want me to
Let's
kick
jump
this
in.
one
What we got
off?
first? Yeah, let me know what we got first.
All right. So I think I'm actually going to do these in a different order. And I'm trying to mix it up just a little bit here. So let's start with, since we were talking about rookies, let's start with the rookie awards. So who do you got for defensive rookie of the year?
Well, I've got to be honest with you. I think you know this by now. I don't tend to like to choose the number one overall favorite for anything, but when it comes to the defensive rookie of the year, I have been so high on Abdul Carter since before the draft. Didn't even know what team he was going to be on yet, but was already thinking he would be the best defensive player in his class. I would be remiss if I didn't keep riding that wave. He is the favorite for that award this year, but I think for a really good reason. Give me Abdul Carter.
All right, that's fair. I'm also going to go with a very highly touted defensive lineman out of your school, the University of Michigan. I'm actually going to pick Mason Graham for Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think that the Browns, since they've already got Myles Garrett, it's going to take a little bit of pressure off of Mason Graham. So he's going to have somebody to learn from on that line that is crazy good. And that's going to just boost him, I think, to another level that gets him the Rookie of the Year award.
Yeah, you know what? I like that pick a lot. He's further down on the odds. I was looking at some futures earlier, which is why I know this, but I
Yeah.
think he's right up there when it comes to contention. So I love that pick. Go blue.
Hell yeah. What about Offensive Rookie of the Year? Who you got?
Okay, so obviously Ashton Genty is the favorite for this for good reason. He's going to have a heavy load, I think, in Las Vegas, but in my opinion, this award almost always goes to a quarterback. And so I would be crazy to not choose Cam Ward here. If for no other reason than he's a quarterback, but I do think that he's going to turn that Tennessee Titans team around. They might not be a playoff team this year, but they're going to look a lot better. And I think he's going to have a good career there. So give me Cam Ward and let's see what happens.
That's fair. And I do agree with you on the fact that quarterbacks do seem to get a little bit of favoritism here, and so that's where I could see that happening. But I'm gonna go different route. I actually think Tet McMillan has one of the most unexpected rookie seasons out there. Him and Bryce Young potentially, are got maybe some chemistry that'll get going, and he surprises everyone as the offensive rookie of the year at wide receiver.
I'm high on Ted. I could see Ted finishing higher than Genty in this award category. Um, and if there wasn't a starting quarterback, then I would say Ted also. So yeah, we'll see. I think one of us will be right, in my opinion.
What about coach of the year?
The same one I thought should have won it last year, and maybe even the year before that. And I think that even now, it matters more than ever. So give me Dan Campbell with the Lions. He doesn't have Ben Johnson anymore. A lot of people attribute a lot of their success to Ben Johnson, but I think whenever Dan Campbell took over, he is a coach for the players, and they really buy into his message. I don't think that he gets enough credit for the success of that team since he took over, and this is the year for him to prove that. So give me Dan Campbell.
That is very fair, and it's hard for me not to say Dan Campbell. So, in honor of saying somebody else, I think it will be Dan Quinn of the Redskins. So I
Okay.
think they were a surprise team last year, and I believe they do continue that momentum with Jaden Daniels at QB, and they have a better season even than last year, maybe even a contender season potentially. So he gets coach of the year.
Hell yeah. I mean, honestly, the sky's the limit for the Redskins. So Commanders. But yeah, we'll see.
Oh, did I call them the Redskins? My bad.
Yeah.
Well, the traditional name. I'm thinking historic football terms here. Defensive player of the year.
I think I'm gonna sound like a Lions fan here, but there's a guy who was dominating last year that went out with an injury, and his name is Aiden Hutchinson, another Michigan guy. He's got the fire in his heart. He's one hell of a competitor, and I think he comes back even stronger off of that injury. Give me Aiden Hutchinson. He's gonna take it back this year.
Jeez, you can just have Mason Graham as your pick, and you pretty much are a Michigan man with your pick so far. I do like Aiden, and I agree he could be in contention. But listen, Micah Parsons has a chip on his shoulder with all this stuff that's happened. I think he comes to Green Bay and he shows Jerry Jones just what he was worth, and he wins Defensive Player of the Year.
Okay, I like it. I like it.
Offensive Player of the Year.
You're gonna think I'm crazy for this one, but we saw with Saquon last year that running backs can and should win this award. And I think we're going to see it again this year with a different running back. I think Bijan Robinson is going to rise to his potential and become the offensive player of the year and dominate this season for the Atlanta Falcons.
That's fair based on some fantasy football related, the predictions. I actually think Patrick Mahomes, as you had stated earlier, has a really great year. Not that he ever has a bad year, but I think he starts to settle in and goes off this year as the offensive player of the year.
Why not MVP?
That's hard. I think he could be in contention for MVP as well. And that's the hard thing of picking a quarterback for this. That's kind of what I went back and forth with.
Yeah.
But speaking of MVP, who do you got for that?
There's only one guy that I can choose. It's the guy who should have won it more than once, and maybe he shouldn't have won it last year, but he definitely should have won it the year before. Give me my guy, my goat right now. Josh Allen brings home another MVP, and he's gonna win his division, and he's gonna go to the conference finals and lose to the Ravens.
So, question: when's the last time somebody won back-to-back MVPs? Was it Lamar or did?
Yeah, Lamar. Lamar
Okay,
almost won it 3 times in a row.
okay. So obviously, I think he'll be in contention. But I actually have Joe Burrow here. I think Joe Burrow did so much with a lot of, talent that he has surrounding him last year, and he has, now a running back that I think is a little bit more reliable and has proven themselves from last year as being somebody he can, rely on for both rushing and passing. So, obviously, he has great receivers. So, I think Joe Burrow goes off, maybe even throws for over 5,000 yards. Let's put it that way.
Okay. I do want to correct myself really quickly because I got an inkling that I might have been wrong, and I was. The 2022 when I thought that Lamar might have also won, actually Pat Mahomes won. So the last person that went two in a row was actually Aaron Rodgers in 2020 and 2021.
Wow. Interesting.
And to your point, I almost selected Joe Burrow for this exact same thing. But if anything, last season showed us that you have to win football games to be considered for the MVP because otherwise Joe Burrow would have won MVP last season. I don't think that team is any better than they were last year. They have no defense at all. It's going to be
Yeah,
tough for them to win 10 plus games. So that's the only reason I didn't choose him. But I do think he's going to have an incredible year. And I just drafted him in a fantasy league 2 nights ago.
that's fair. Cool. NFL early season award predictions. Let us know, what's our grade? What would you give us on a grade level? Do we get an A, a B, B minus, whatever? And comment below what your thoughts are. What did we get
Oh,
right,
yeah.
or what do you think in terms of these awards?
And we know you will, but tell us who will win if you don't agree with us.
Hell yeah. Ready for some halftime pour?
Oh, yeah.
All right. This is our chance to take a little bit of a breather from the sports and incorporate some of the bourbon. As you can tell, single barrel sports, right? We have the barrel in there for the bourbon. So, Scott, tell us what you're drinking tonight. What's the proof? Any other information, rating, blah blah blah. If you want to give it, I know we're not always going to have this a new bottle every week. So, if it's something that you've had before, that's okay. And then we'll do a question of the night.
Yeah, well, it is a repeat for me tonight in gotta drink a little more bourbon before I keep restocking the shelf. So right now I've got myself the Rabbit Hole Cave Hill bourbon. Had this a couple of weeks ago. It is aged 4 years, comes out of Louisville, Kentucky. It is a 95 proof bottle, so a little bit lighter than some of the bourbons I feature on here. This one is roughly around $60, and my goodness, is it tasty. You're gonna get some smells like honey and apple and corn, just some really kind of sweet smells. And the taste is gonna be just as good. Kind of minty, honey. I almost say like a Cheerios type of a flavor on the aftertaste to it. And it's very smooth, very good drink. So I know I just featured this a couple weeks ago, but we're bringing it back out tonight because it is tasty. Oh, and I gave this an 84 out of 100.
Hell yeah. I love that one. Got something special tonight, Scott.
Okay, let's see it.
Something that we've been talking about in a group chat that I have to give a special,
Ooh.
special shout out to my wife because I saw this. I was working. She was off. I said, "Hey, you're going to the store. Can you stop at the liquor store that's right next door?" And she said, "Yeah, I'll stop." So she was able to snag a bottle of the Jack Daniels single barrel heritage barrel, toasted. So the barrel's also toasted. It's a 7-year-old bourbon, of course, by Jack Daniels. This isn't the cheap, nasty Jack Daniels that people think of. This is the good shit. Um, they're out of Lynchburg, Tennessee. This is actually 100 proof, so on the lighter end, let's call it, of things. This, I believe, MSRP is at about $70 to $80. It was $100, I think, was what she told me with tax. So, liquor stores kind of sometimes jack up the price a bit. But man, this is one hell of a drink. Let's put it that way, Scott. On the smell, I get gingerbread and kind of like a vanilla custard smell. Very, very delicious smell. It's one of my favorite smells I think that I've had in a while. And then the taste, you get that kind of vanilla slash custard taste, but you also get, Scott, marshmallow and graham cracker on the taste.
Ooh, that sounds amazing.
It is amazing. Yes, it is very, very delicious, and I'm very pleased with the poor. So I gave it a 92. It's actually now the highest rating that I've had so far on this list.
Hell yeah, man. Well,
So
enjoy that. I wish I could sip some of that too.
cheers.
Cheers, my friend.
All right,
And
we got it.
as always, we have a question. What's our
Yeah, what
question
is it?
tonight?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll read it. What is one sports take that you have that would instantly get you roasted online?
Wow. Okay, well, I'm gonna try this. Maybe we can clip it and see if that's actually true. Majority of Ohio State quarterbacks do not do well in the NFL and become nobodies within their first 5 years of going to the NFL from college, is my controversial take that I might get roasted on. So let me have it. Let's see.
I think that's pretty objective. I mean, there haven't been very many that have done well. People are like, "Oh, CJ Stroud and Justin Fields." I'm like, "Well, first of all, Justin Fields, really?" But CJ also had an amazing rookie year, and what did he do in his sophomore season? So, we'll see where he's at in a few more years. And that's not me talking as a Michigan fan. That's just objectively talking about Ohio State quarterbacks at the next level.
What's yours?
Um, my one take that will immediately get me roasted is one that I just posted on social media on Sunday or on Monday. Yeah, just yesterday. It was that Michigan will wholeheartedly beat Ohio State this year and make the playoffs. And I did get roasted for that. And that's all right. Because it won 4 in a row. And we were 27-point underdogs last year and we won. Can't get much worse than that. So we'll see how things go. But I'm excited for November. That's always a fun game. Go blue.
I think though you did have some mixed reviews though on it.
Some people were at least saying they were worried about Michigan, that's like the one game they were concerned about. It sounds like some
Yeah.
people are more worried about Michigan than they even were about Texas.
Yep.
So
Yeah. So
I'm worried about Oklahoma, if I'm being
yeah,
really honest.
I
I'm
was
a
gonna
little
say.
scared about this weekend as a Michigan fan. I think Bryce Underwood looked great. I think he's going to have a great career, but he still is very young. He's a true freshman.
Yeah.
And his second game is going to Oklahoma and playing against Oklahoma. It's going to be tough.
So kind of almost like an Arch Manning. Not the exactly, but similar situation, right?
Yep, for sure. Hell yeah. Well, that is the halftime pour, my friend. Cheers to you. And cheers to
Cheers.
everyone listening.
Hell yeah. All right, time to do some call outs. We got this week, Scott.
Well, our what we call the fan of the week, the supportive people of the week, is we had Smooth, or also known as at J Bunnies 12, said, as a realistic Ohio State fan, Michigan is the only game I'm nervous about this year, but I believe we'll get it done. See ya in November. And so I appreciated that take. I'm definitely excited about the game. And I want people to feel confident with their own teams. And so it's fine to tell us how you feel. And it's nice to admit that you're a little nervous because I'm nervous too. What was our hater of the week, Deeb?
Well, before I get there, I think I fan of the week because you're one of not many realistic Ohio State fans that we've come across. So I think that's the part that got us of like, okay, you're being pretty reasonable here. So I hater of the week, TikTok Smoke and Mirrors or Smoke and Mirror 76 said to the same clip on Michigan versus Ohio State, gonna cheat your way to the playoffs too, LOL. So what do you have to say to that, Scott, as a Michigan fan?
It's the only thing they can stand on right now. They've lost 4 games to us in a row. I don't want to hear anything about this because when we won the national championship, Connor Stallions was gone at the beginning of that season. He wasn't there for any part of that national championship run. Move on. Give me something else.
All right, that's fair. You ready to do some picks?
Let's get the picks rolling.
Hell yeah. All right, so revisiting just college football stats so far. So we're gonna probably just end up keeping track of both for hopefully the entire season for both. So right now, we have overall records with the betting odds. So we always do our picks with the betting odds and the spread
Yep.
is I'm 7-5 and you're 6-6. So not bad, not great, kind of in the middle right now. We're still obviously the very first week of college football prior to this is maybe not the best. But we're gonna do two different segments tonight on the picks. We're gonna do college football game day style again, with the quote unquote top matchups of the week. You know, they're not gonna always be extravagant. And then we're gonna do NFL games week one again, top matchups that we think are interesting for the week.
Hell yeah.
So,
Forward to it.
all right, you ready for college football week two picks?
Yes, sir. Let's get into it.
All right. First one we have is South Florida, who put an absolute beating on Boise State week one at Florida. It's minus 17.5 to Florida. Who you got?
They beat the shit out of Boise State. They won by 27. Give me South Florida, man. I don't think they're going to win the game, but they might make it closer than 17.5 points. Let's go. Let's go South Florida playing away at Florida. Let's get it.
I think they did beat the shit out of Boise State as well, and they're probably going to be a tough matchup for Florida, no doubt. I like South Florida to cover the spread. I agree with you. I also think Florida wins this, but I think they cover the spread, and that's why I'm picking them.
Yeah, I could see Florida winning by like 14, which is still a respectable amount of points to win by.
Yeah, I think
But
they win by
17 and a
7.
half is a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot. It's a huge spread.
Yep. I think it's 7 to 10 point game. Second one, we have a rivalry match right off the get-go. Iowa at Iowa State. Iowa State is a 3.5, minus 3.5 in this one.
Yeah,
Pretty.
you know me. I'm rolling with the Cyclones. Give me Iowa State. Let's go.
I am going with Iowa on this one. I think they are one of the surprise teams out of the Big Ten. That's going to be a tough one to take down. So I actually do think they win the game as well.
Oh, well, that's a tight spread, so that makes sense.
Yep. This next one is more of just from our pure fandom. I think for me, mainly, Oklahoma State goes to Oregon, minus 28.5 is the spread, Scott.
Jeez, dude, it's just so tough to bet on a spread that big. I know Oregon just dominated last week, though, and they're at home. Is Oklahoma State that bad this year?
I don't know. We'll see.
I'm going to ride with Oklahoma State. I do think they'll lose. I don't think it will be close. But 28.5 is such a gigantic spread. Just give me Oklahoma State and I'll say some prayers.
I think I should have learned my lesson last week as I picked Montana State and they didn't win. But I am also going to pick Oklahoma State because I think Oregon wins by 27, not 28.5. So for the record, Oregon, I believe, does win the game. And now, Scott, it's time for the game of the week. This is where game day is going to be at. We have Michigan at Oklahoma, minus 5.5. Oklahoma is the favorite. Who do you got?
I will never bet against my team at this early in the season. Give me Michigan. Even if they lose, as long as they lose by less than 5.5, I still win this bet. I think they'll win. I think they're going to surprise the world. They got Haynes at running back looking like a beast. They got Underwood at quarterback with a game under his belt. Give me Michigan on the road, and let's put ourselves back on the map, baby.
All right. I think Michigan came out and proved to people that they can win against an interesting New Mexico team. I think Michigan has a pretty sound defense, but we saw some holes potentially week one. I think Michigan has a phenomenal quarterback that's in the work of developing. They have seems to be a steady running back or running game per usual. Some of the question marks at wide receiver, I believe they think they have a reasonable tight end. Oklahoma looks great. I mean, they didn't have a crazy matchup week one. You know, Oklahoma is a powerhouse. They have a lot of talent on that team, and they also have Scott home field advantage, but
Yeah.
not so fast, my friend. I think Michigan comes to Oklahoma and does also shock the world. But remember, I had the games Nebraska and Michigan State circled on their calendar later in the year. So they come away with the surprise victory here, and their losses come later in the year.
We'll see.
So those are our game day picks, my friends. So
Hell yeah.
NFL, you want to do these ones?
Yes, sir. NFL week 1, anything can happen. We got Lions and Packers. Packers are a 2.5-point favorite, especially with Micah Parsons on their team. Who do you got here, Lions or Packers?
It's so hard for me to pick against the Lions, but I think they have to play at Lambeau, which is a tough season opener. Dan Campbell and the Lions, I think, play really well. I think the Packers just beat them out in this game, so I have to pick the Packers.
Okay, well, I won't say a lot. I think the Lions come in and they set the tone for their season. I think they win this game, but they certainly don't lose by 2.5. Give me the Lions.
All right. What you got next?
Vikings at the Bears, and the Vikings are 1.5-point favorites. Very intriguing matchup here. What are your thoughts?
Vikings. Easy pick.
I really don't think it's easy anymore. I think because the Bears have solidified their trenches, they're gonna have a better offensive and defensive line. I think they're competitive. But my boy JJ gets his chance to shine with another JJ leading his wide receiver core. I think the Vikings win this game, and it'll be close. I think it will be close.
Hold on one second. Remember last week when I showed you my prop? Remember when I had a prop
Yes.
for Shador Sanders? Caleb Williams. Here we go.
The garbage.
Yep. There you go.
Man.
Easy pick.
Well, we'll see. I could see Caleb having a good year this year. He's got a better offense around him. He's got a better coaching situation. I do think he has talent. He just needs to make good decisions. Sanders, I could call garbage. I don't know if I'm ready to call Williams garbage yet. Let's give him one more year.
He's a shrimp.
Okay.
All right. Well, who's up next?
Moving on, we've got the Texans at the Rams, with the Rams being a 3.5-point favorite. Who do you got?
Ooh, this one's tough as well. I actually like the Texans. I think they come out and surprise people in this one for the opener.
I'm with you. I think there's a lot of question marks about the Rams. There's some differences on that team. They've lost some players. They've got some banged up players, some aging players. Give me the Texans. I actually think CJ Stroud, regardless of what I said earlier about Ohio State quarterbacks, I think CJ Stroud has a bounce back year this year. And I think we're going to see a pretty strong Texans team, at least in these early games.
Hell yeah.
And our game of the week, and holy shit, how is this happening in week 1? We have the Ravens at the Bills, and the Bills are favored by 1.5 points. Who do you got?
Well, first of all, when you just said that, it reminded me of that meme when there's like an Asian guy and his name is Holy Shit. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but I'll definitely have to send that to you after this because the way that you said it, that's exactly what I pictured, by the way. Ravens at Bills. This is a crazy opener. I'm going to put my mouth where my money's at. Give me the Super Bowl champs, the Bills.
This is where it gets interesting because I keep saying the Ravens are going to beat the Bills in the playoffs. And I think I'm taking the Bills in week 1. I do think I'm going to take the Bills here, and I still think the Ravens will win the Super Bowl.
That's fair. Man,
Call me whatever you want to call me, but that's how we're going to start week 1.
Well, we had a lot of overlapping picks this week, but I think we had two games total that we were different, which happens. We don't talk about these picks before this, so just to let people know, we are going based off of our own thoughts here on who we pick.
Yeah. Hey, one more thing I do want to point out here. With NFL Sundays, we did this last season. We will likely put out at least one Single Barrel Sports parlay each Sunday. So if you guys are interested to see what our choices are for that, check our socials out on Sunday. We'll get it out early before the game start. And we'll have a parlay that we sponsor to hopefully win some money this week.
Yeah, singlebarrelsports.com is where you will find our socials.
Yep. And always gamble responsibly. We just feel like we need to say that.
Well, you need to say that. 2-minute warning time. You ready?
All right. I am. Let me just pull up our trusty timer here. Do you want to ask the first question or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can go.
All right. And go.
Would you rather have your fantasy football draft hosted by Steve Harvey or Snoop Dogg?
Oh, man. Oh, I feel like Snoop is such a great answer here, but I am a stan for Steve Harvey, and I feel like it'd be so much fun. And when people make really bad picks, I just want to see his facial expressions, the way he just looks at people when they give dumbass answers on Family Feud. So give me Steve Harvey, I think, actually.
All right.
Would you rather have a kicker who makes every extra point but misses every field goal, or a kicker who makes every field goal but misses every extra point?
Wow. Well, I think probably field goals because they're worth more. I don't know.
It's reasonable. That's reasonable.
Yeah. Would you rather play fantasy against Lamar Jackson for 16 weeks or play against Saquon Barkley?
Ooh, I would probably rather, this is going to sound crazy, but I think I'd rather play against Lamar Jackson because I think the point difference between Saquon and other running backs is bigger than the point difference between Lamar and other quarterbacks. But I don't want to play against either of these guys ever.
That's fair.
Would you rather have a full team, or excuse me, a team full of rookie running backs who might explode for 30 points, or veteran wide receivers who are guaranteed 10 points every single week?
Give me the rookies. I learned my
Okay.
lesson with Bucky Irving last year. I'll take the rookies for 30.
Boomer bust. Okay.
Yep. Would you rather have a league mate who trash talks nonstop or someone who never talks but always shits on you?
I think I would rather have the league mate that talks trash nonstop because that's part of the fun in fantasy football.
You don't like the silent guys?
They're weird, man. It freaks me out. All right, we're gonna ask one more here. Would you rather win your league because your opponent's star player got injured, or lose your league because your star player got injured?
Absolutely win because their star player got injured. I absolutely hate when my people get injured or I get screwed over by like losing by like point 0.1, and it always happens.
I'm
So,
with you. Yeah,
yeah,
injuries are part of fantasy football, right? Like, I'd rather it happen to you than me.
yep, definitely.
Okay.
Well, just like at the bar, my friends, it's time to kick everybody out. It's the last call. So, Scott, what do you have for the last call?
Hey, I just want to say, super pumped. Love fantasy football. The season is here to enjoy football 4 to 5 days a week. Amazing. We got college, we got pro, whatever you're into, we're covering it here. If there are certain topics, whether it's teams, players, controversies, standings, predictions, let us know what you would like us to engage with because we'll talk about it all. The conversation doesn't end at the end of this episode. It just gives us an opportunity to continue it on our social media. So engage with us. Look forward to chatting with you all. And thank you for following on our journey.
Hell yeah. It's that exciting time of the year, friends. We had it with college football this past week, and now this week we have it with NFL being back. So we are really going to be jam packed with lots of football for the rest of next few months, pretty much till the end of the year. So I'm excited. I hope our fantasy advice slash, just thoughts help you out. I know certainly it helps me to just kind of think through some of that stuff and bounce it off other people. So if you have thoughts, you want us to talk about things, you want us to, grade your draft, whatever, that sort of stuff, please feel free to send that to us because I think it helps us and also hopefully somebody else out there. So until next week, friends, enjoy your weekend of football and fun.